Afternoon, buenas tardes. It's good to see everybody here. My name is Miguel Zavala, and I'm excited. I'm really happy that we have two scholars, intellectuals, and also activists here today talking about this whole question of fascism. It's a question that's emerged even in family spaces that I am a part of. And I think we're living a very important moment where we need to come together to educate ourselves. And so once the political decision and elections took place in Brazil not too long ago, several of us in the Polyphonic Democratic Project thought, let's do a community forum, a la comunidad. And so that's why we're here. It's about education. I will introduce Janaina and then Peter McLaren. But in a nutshell, that's what we're here today, is to educate ourselves on fascism. There will be some Q&A that we'll have, and so pay close attention to each of the speakers. You're not going to be tested. It's not a class. But and so let me just will introduce Janaina. So Janaina Madonet is a PhD student in social movements and public policies at the School of Education at the University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. In 2017, she was visiting scholar at the Center for the Study of Democracy at the University of California, Irvine. She is specialist in public policies in early childhood at Organization of Ibero-American States and in human rights and education at the University of Complutense of Madrid, Spain. She has taught as a college professor at the School of Education at Sumare and Montessori College in Sao Paulo, and has been working in education, continuing training for principals on public schools based on Paulo Freire's ideas. She is an activist in a social movement located in Sao Paulo, Brazil, called Fórum de Educação Infantil, that defends children's educational rights. So let's welcome Janaina, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I would like to say thank you to Sheckman University and Professor Miguel Zavala and Professor Peter McLaren. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about what happened in Brazil. Talk about what happened in Brazil is not too pleasure, but it's important to understand the rise of fascism in the world. Because Brazil is living dark days. Since the impeachment, we are experiencing several setbacks of human rights. Human rights are being threatened by the next Brazilian president, Jair Bolsonaro, and his supporters. We are experiencing a rise of fascism in Brazil. Understand what happened in Brazil could help to understand the rise of fascism in the world and possible resistances. My speech is divided in 4 parts. I want to talk to you about what led Bolsonaro to win presidential election in Brazil. Why can we say Bolsonaro is a fascist? Threats to progressive education and possible resistances. What led Bolsonaro? First is important to state that fascism is growing in the world associated with social inequality and disbelief in democracy. But what I want to highlight today in my speech is how the international interest in Brazil will help explain what's going on in my country. When Dilma and Lula were presidents, Brazil started to strengthen alliance with other emerging countries, like some countries in Africa and Latin America, and these alliances were threatening for the powers of rich nations. Besides that, the United States started to be repositioning its relationship with Latin America in order to contain the advance of China and BRICS. BRICS means Brazil, Russia, China, and South Africa, and India. This BRICS is a platform for cooperation among emerging markets and developing countries. And China nowadays is an important partnership, commercial partnership with Brazil. In 2006, pre-sal was discovered in Brazil. What's pre-sal? Pre-salt is a large accumulation of light oil, excellent quality, and with high commercial value. In the beginning, the exploration of pre-salt, it will be exclusively for Petrobras, a Brazilian state company. But after the impeachment in 2016, our Congress approved a law that this exploration is not more exclusively for Petrobras and opening it for foreigners' company. Also, there are many interests in the privatization of state-owned companies in Brazil, especially Petrobras and Eletrobras. China and the USA are competing for them. Besides these external factors, it's also important to understand Brazilian culture and internal force to understand why far right is so important in my country. Like many other countries, including the USA, people from Brazil felt they were not represented by current politicians. Despite Bolsonaro being a congressman for 27 years, his campaign sold his image as an outsider, not involved in corruption. But PP was his party for more than 10 years, and its party with the most corruption accusation. Bolsonaro, an ex-army captain turned career politician, has been able to transform and systemic sentiment stemming from Brazil's economic and political crisis into right-wing reaction. Dissatisfaction with Brazil's corrupt political class has been transformed into a generalized anti-left sentiment, in which one party, PT, is responsible for everything, the employment to high crimes rights. A discourse in Latin America that used moral panic as a strategy. Messages that gay and feminists want to create a perverted society have been publicized. The idea of gender ideology, defunded by conservative religious force, is part of that. Bolsonaro used this message in his speech. Besides that, Brazil evangelical church have had a power plan for decades. They are responsible for the election of a numerous congressmen and have a huge role in the Bolsonaro's campaign and his ministry choices. Brazil has a predatory ally. On one hand, this ally defends ultra-neoliberalism and privatization. For the other hand, they defend that the state needs to help them with loans and minimum wages. Brazil ally, general, disagree of PT social programs for poor people. Brazil was the last country in America to abolish slavery, and the country is marked by it. It's common for the middle class to have a maid cooking and cleaning for them every day. I don't know if you know that, but in Brazil it's common, to have a. When President Dilma approved more rights for the servants, there was a big complaint from the middle class and the elite in Brazil. When poor people start traveling by airplane, there are also a lot of complaints. There's a lot of prejudice against the poor in Brazil. And this has grown in the Lula and Dilma government due to the social policies implemented. Big landowners, militaries, and religious people are growing in representation in Congress. We call them BBB, bench, Bible, bullets, and beef. They defend their business and ideology, and this bench played an important role in Dilma 2016 impeachment, and they are the major supporters of Bolsonaro. Dilma was impeached because of a maneuver in a public account. But after the impeachment, the same maneuver was considered legal by the Congress. According to Stephen Levitsky in How Democracy Dies, impeachment is a hardball in democracy. And if there is not strong evidence, it could be a cause of weak institution. It's happening in Brazil. Although most Brazilians defend democracy, most people do not trust in our democratic institution. After the impeachment, Ally and mass media expected that the new government would be represented by PSDB, the Liberal Center-Right Party. But it didn't happen. PSDB got really weak in the impeachment process because of their own political scandals. Bolsonaro and far-right supporters sold themselves as a savior of the country from PT and PSDB. They sold themselves as the Brazilian Avengers.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Bolsonaro won under alliance of multiple interests and forces. These forces join together against the left, but they don't have a clear objective and a solidarity purposes. Besides understanding external and internal factors, it's important to understand Bolsonaro campaign strategies as well. Steve Bannon was a consequence of Bolsonaro campaign. In fact, Bannon, Bolsonaro, sons Eduardo, and Italian Prime Minister Matteo Salvini are trying to create a far-right front in the world. This is Eduardo Bolsonaro, Jair Bolsonaro's sons, with this cap. It's a Trump 2020 campaign.
Trump's friends, 2020. Right?
2020.
Wow.
Right,
Just to let you know what happened.
right.
In the second round of the election in Brazil, Bolsonaro refused to go to any debate. He made statements through Facebook videos or allied channels. The abstention of debate means that ideas couldn't be discussed in the democratic way. And Bolsonaro didn't compromise himself by laying out detailed proposals for the country. In certain way, Brazilians gave free rein for his government. So, approximately 1,000 messages per day were spread in favor of Bolsonaro or against PT through WhatsApp. The newspaper Folha de São Paulo reported this, and its journalist was threatened by Bolsonaro supporters. Some famous far-right YouTubers had been mobilized in the last year to spread message in favor of Bolsonaro idea. They have thousands of followers and know how to communicate with young people. Bolsonaro campaign was built based on fake news, hate, and fear, not in proposals. Hate about leftists and PT, and fear of communism and gender ideology. I'm going to read some of fake news against PT and Haddad, his political opponents in the election. Haddad said that every child is state property. That's one of the fake news. This is the best one. Haddad and PT distributed erotic bait bottles in daycare centers. Haddad defends incest in his book. Haddad will persecute church or any faith. Those fake news were spread majority through WhatsApp. WhatsApp is extremely popular in Brazil. Almost everybody who has a cell phone is included at least one WhatsApp group, such as family, parents club, church, so on. Now, I would like to explain why we say that Bolsonaro is a fascist. It's possible to find most of the characteristics of fascism in the Bolsonaro speech and or in his proposals. I select some of these characteristics for you. As I said, Bolsonaro is trying to criminalize social movements, and he declared them as a terrorist organization. There are many examples of his speech against social movement, leftist party, and activism in Brazil. In a rally in Acre, a state in Brazil, he said, "Let's shoot down all Works Party supporters in these states." In his discourse after the first round, he said, "We are going to end all activism in Brazil." In a second rally, he said, "These red outlaws will be banished from our homeland. It will be a cleanup to the likes of which has never been seen in Brazilian history." It's important to say, before the final results, the Brazilian investigative journalism, Agência Pública, was compiled at a list of at least 50 attacks carried out across Brazil by Bolsonaro supporters. On the same day of his victory, Brazilian indigenous people and some settlements for MST, Landless Works movement, were attacked. Bolsonaro has promised to wage war in Brazil's favela, where most police violence already occurs. "I will give police carte blanche to kill," he said. "Police that kill thugs will be condecorated." He defends torture for who deserves. Also, when he votes for President Dilma Rousseff impeachment, he dedicates his vote to the cruelest colonel who ran the unit that tortured Rousseff and others during the country's military dictatorship. Bolsonaro is fond of saying that he supported the dictatorship, wishing that the death squad had killed tens of thousands more people. The dictatorship's mistake was to torture, not to kill. "My goal is to make Brazil similar to what it was 40 and 50 years ago." But 40, 50 years ago, Brazil lived military dictatorship. He defends Brazil was safer at this time, but safe for him. He wants at least one of military school in each Brazilian state led by military principles. So far, it has been confirmed that 6 ministries will be occupied by members of the Brazilian army. 6 ministries in Brazil will be occupied by people from army, Brazilian army. It's really serious. Other face of fascism is a contempt for human rights. I'm going to read some of his speech about women, Brazilian indigenous people, and gays to speak for themselves. "I will not fight, I will not discriminate, but if I see 2 men on the street kissing each other, I'll beat it up." "Women should get paid less because they can get pregnant." "If I will be elected, Brazil indigenous people will not have 1 inch more of land." "A son begins to look like a little bit gay, then will give him a punch. He's changed his behavior, okay?
Oh my God.
I'm glad I got spanked. My dad taught me to be a man." It's important to understand why Bolsonaro is by himself. His statement reveals who is he and what he represents. Many Brazilians who vote for him tend to downplay what he says. Some people told me, "He's just talk, he's acting." What happened, however, is far beyond Bolsonaro per se. He represents powerful interests and ideologies. Another face of fascism is media control and censorship. Since the election, he threats and disqualifies newspaper and TV channels. He only gives interviews for a live channel. He leaves the press conference when he disagrees with reporters. He used social media, Facebook, to give statements. We know somebody who do that, no? And the similarity of Trump is not a coincidence. Brazil above everything. This is Bolsonaro's slogan in the campaign. This is the same slogan from Nazism, Germany above everything. Let's make Brazilian great. Let's be proud for our homeland. Once again, he said on the eve of the vote. Again, there is a lot of similarity of Trump. And that's not just a coincidence. At the same time, he stands for nationalism. His economic staff is ultra-liberal. Some specialists highlight possible internal conflicts inside his government between nationalism generals and ultra-liberals. This photo is from a Brazilian school in Goiás, the States. Sorry. Yeah. Progressive education is threatened by Bolsonaro government. He defends a school without party and defends that students should record indoctrinators' teacher. Bolsonaro has encouraged a false narrative based on non-existent Marxist indoctrination in the classroom. The project School Without Party is a part of cultural dispute created by the far right. The new education minister, an emeritus professor at the Army School, is a supporter of School Without Party. According to him, he wants to preserve the good family's value and tradition, wherever they are. Besides agreeing with Bolsonaro, the education minister defends that military dictatorship should be celebrated in Brazil. School is a space for multiple visions about the world. The role of the school is education for citizenship in democratic society. This is written in Brazilian Constitution. School Without Party denies this function of school under so-called neutral school, without ideology. The idea is that the school is a neutral place where neutral content. But all school practice is ideological. When you select certain contents, when you organize the classes in a certain way, when you open space or not for dialogue, you have an ideology about the purpose of school. All educational choices are ideological and have a conception of work and education. Military schools are extremely ideological and defend passive students who must listen, not speak, not think, and not question. The project School Without Party is terrible for education. More and more teachers are being accused of Marxist indoctrination whenever they mention any progressive subject. They are being accused of practicing gender ideology when they try to discuss issues related by sexuality and homophobia. Many teachers are being threatened and sued. Nowadays, there is a kind of war among teachers, families, and students because of the lack of trust. And the lack of trust in this relationship only harms students. In addition, this proposal threw a smoke screen on the great problems of education in the country. Lack of proper work, low wages. It's happened now, before Bolsonaro inauguration. It will be in January 2nd, Bolsonaro inauguration. Paulo Freire and his educational theories would be criminalized in the next government. One of Bolsonaro's educational proposals is to eradicate Paulo Freire ideology. In a college that I used to be a professor, some of colleagues told me that some students refuse to stay in class when they talk about Paulo Freire. Paulo Freire defended school based on dialogue, listening, mutual learning, humanization of relationship, and students with a critical spirit. Every educational act is a political act, he said. He was aware that school is ideological, and curriculum always pass away. Paulo Freire had a deep knowledge of inter-school relation, and he viewed the school and its hiding curriculum. He well said that education is not transmission of knowledge. You cannot take life out of school. This is real and impossible. School cannot hide the conflicts inherent in the world under the roof. Even because of school, these conflicts are potentialized, because there are people with different backgrounds, and they meet each other there. But there's not just bad news. A lot of resistance and coalition are being built in Brazil. Articulation among different social movements, LGBT, black women, Brazilian indigenous people, union, education, and so on. Articulation with some sectors of the judiciary, not all of them. There are huge differences among them. And articulation with international NGOs that protect human rights. Like Human Rights Watch, they said they will watch Brazil the next years. But one of the most beautiful movements, in my opinion, is Democratic Brigades. Based on teaching of Paulo Freire, college professors, students, artists, activists are going to metro station, square, and other public spaces in order to listen and dialogue with people about Brazil's situation. She's a famous actress in Brazil, Letícia Sabatella. The movement Women Against Bolsonaro joined 100,000 of people in Brazil and around the world. They have a Facebook page with more than 4 million women in them. And these women gather themselves in collective groups and still make a resistance. We have a collective group in LA, Simone and another women. Are you invited to join us? Want to know more? Between first and second round of election were a lot of protests against Bolsonaro. With a lot of people. Yeah. There are some international resistance also, as the Brazil Solidarity Initiative and U.S. National Network for Democracy in Brazil. The Brazil Solidarity Initiative is a British-based campaign in solidarity with progressive movements, fight for equality, democratic rights, social progress in Brazil. Anyone can participate. Oh, that's the link. Some information for you. Last Saturday at Columbia University in New York, a group of academics and activists created a national network for democracy in Brazil. The objectives are educate the American public about the current Brazilian situation and give solidarity to social movements, community organization, university, and activism who may or may be vulnerable in the current political climate. To join them, it's interesting. They make some petitioners and make some protests, collective protests, and there's a lot of things that people can help, can do in order to help Brazil. So, I hope I could show you a landscape about what's going on in Brazil. We can find similarities with other experiences around the world, including the USA under Trump era. It's important to find the similarities in order to understand the rise of fascism and its strategies. I want to finish my speech with Eduardo Galeano's speech. It's one of my favorites. Utopia lies at the horizon. When I draw near by 2 steps, it retreats 2 steps. If I proceed 10 steps forwards, it swiftly slips 10 steps ahead. No matter how far I go, I can never reach it. What then is the purpose of the utopia? It's to cause us to advance. We need to maintain the utopia, and it's truly important for resistance. Hope is revolutionary, said Paulo Freire. Thank you.